It's now my honor to introduce Chile's Minister of Finance, Nicolas Grau. Before his current role, he served as Minister of Economy, where he promoted reforms to speed up investment, to increase women participation in boards of directors, and to support clean energies, among others. He holds a PhD in economics from the University of Pennsylvania and is a former professor of the University of Chile. Please join me in welcoming Minister Nicolas Grau to deliver his keynote address. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It's a great honor to be here. Let me say a special word to the governor of the Central Bank of Chile, Rosana Costa. Catherine O'Neill, thank you for your speech. This speech and the previous one that you talk about. All the authorities, Solange Bernstein, Jimena Fuentes, the ambassador of UK in Chile, Luis de Sousa, and the senators, Senator Lagos Weber and Javier Macaya. As I said, it's a great honor to be here. I think that the relationship between UK and Chile is a very strong one for all the reasons that you already stated. And I agree with you that given the difficult situation, all the geopolitical challenges that we are facing, the kind of relationship that we can have between our countries is a very important one, not just economically speaking, but also in all the dimensions that you can imagine. Okay? So I'm gonna have my presentation now. And also I want to say thank you to Invest and HBC for all the organization we have been working together in organizing this event, and also to Carola Moreno, part of our staff in the Ministry of Finance, who has been very important, not just in the organizing this event, but also in being very strong supporter to my visit here. So she really pushed for this. Given that I just started this position like a few weeks ago, it was important in this decision. Okay, so I'm gonna make my presentation. Sorry for those who already saw this presentation. I changed a few things to make it more interesting to you. Okay. Here, I have this. Okay, so the plan for the presentation, first I'm gonna tell you what was our starting point at the beginning of the government, what was our economic view, but also our political view about how to face all the challenges that we face at the beginning of the government. Then maybe the most important part of the presentation is going to be discussing fiscal and social responsible policy, the way that we try to put together these two important goals, then the economic outlook, and finally, what is our view about how to increase the structural capacity of our economy to growth more, which is maybe the most important challenge that we have right now. So about the starting point. When we started the government, I would say that we face different challenges. Some of them economic challenge, political challenges. Maybe the most important ones are in this slide. Low growth, it was very important. We have been growing about 2% in the last 10 years or so. We had an important challenge about the macroeconomic imbalance. I'm gonna say some things more specific about that in few minutes. Inequality, a lack of social cohesion. This is a long-standing problem in Chile since the beginning of Chile, actually. Environmental challenges. We need to have a transition, a very difficult transition. This is not just in Chile, but in general, to have green growth, to change the technologies of all the companies such that we can growth more, but with less impact on our environment. And finally, politically speaking, I would say that the most important challenge is that we do not have a common view about how to address all these challenges. And this is obviously a big issue. Okay? Given this whole situation, our approach was to base the answer of all these challenges both based on the institutional strength of our country. Okay? We have a strong democracy, rule of law, fiscal reputation. All of them are huge asset to address any problem, any challenge. Okay? And at the same time, we have our progressive political view, and that is obviously also play a relevant role in our approach. As you know, we faced 2 constitutional drafts that were voted, even though the outcome was not the expected one, because we thought that we were going to have a new constitution. I do think that is very relevant, and it's something that we have to be proud about. That is how we were able to address all this political challenge, all this political disruption, to address that using our democratic institutions. And we were able to solve our differences using the democratic opinion of all the people in Chile, and I think this is something to be proud. This is something that our president always emphasized. Okay, so this is our, let's say, the general framework how we address all these political, economic challenges that we had at the beginning of the government. So now I'm going to be more specific about all these different aspect of the economic approach that we follow. So first of all, the most important thing for our ministry, the Ministry of Finance, is the fiscal situation. Okay, and in this figure, in this plot, you can see all the variance that we have had last years. Okay, in blue you have the revenues, in red you have the expenditure. So basically, there have been a lot of variation. First, the revenues was really high, given the situation that we have in Chile by 2021. The economy was overheating at that point. Okay? Then we try to, and we were succeed about that. We try to reduce the government expenditure during the first year. The reduction was more than 20%. As far as I know, the highest reduction in the world for that year. Okay? And then if you see the last 2 years, basically what we're trying to do now is trying to stabilize this government expenditure, and is increasing, but it's increasing less than the number that used to be. To give you broad number, the 10 years before our government expenditure was growing by more than 6-7% each year. At the end of our government, the expenditure is the growth in the expenditure is gonna be about 2%. And here I'm not considering 2022, because given a reduction of 20% of that year, if you consider that year, I think the number is minus 3%. Okay? So basically what we're trying to do is try to have a growth in the government expenditure at the same pace of the growth of the economy, okay, such that we can have a sustainable fiscal path. Another way to see this is what is the impact of our fiscal approach on government debt. And this is something that you can see here, the growth of the debt to GDP ratio. Okay? And basically what you can see here is that this year, 2025, we're going to have the lowest growth in debt to GDP ratio in almost 2 decades. Okay? It's going to about 0.5 percentage point. This is what we expect this year. So this is another way to show our commitment to fiscal responsibility. And I will also try to emphasize that one of the contribution that our government did to the institutional framework that we have in Chile for fiscal policy is that we add another goal. Okay? We used to have the goal of the structural deficit. Okay? Now we also have a seal for the debt to GDP ratio. Okay? And we are given the goal that this new goal that we add to the fiscal policy, we are acting we are acting in concordances of that new goal, and we are being successful, as you can see. Okay. This plot also emphasized the previous point. Here, basically, what you can see is that, for example, what was the expectation of the evolution for the debt, okay? And basically the expectation was worse than the current situation. We were able to stabilize the dynamic of the debt. Okay? I'm not going to emphasize this too much because Rosana Costa, she's going to present she's going to have a presentation, but just let me say that our country has been very successful in controlling the inflation. Okay, obviously the main role in this achievement was by the Central Bank of Chile, but we also made a contribution. Given I would say that our main contribution was the first year, basically to have this huge decrease in the government expenditure. Okay. Also, we had to tackling the different macroeconomics imbalances that we face as the beginning. There are many of them, but here I would like to emphasize the situation that we had in the current account. Okay, the deficit reached almost 10%, okay, which was obviously really high and something that you cannot sustain in a long-term perspective. So it was very important at the beginning of the government to control that situation. Okay. Obviously, all these things I mean, this is data, but still, this is the opinion of the government, and we are interested in to show the best data that we can show. But so it's also relevant to see what is the perspective of our economy from the market. Okay? And this plot shows exactly that. Here you can see the sovereign debt spread, and basically what you can see in this plot is that the debt spread that we have in Chile right now is even lower than the one that we had before COVID. Okay? And so basically, the market is recognizing the capacity of our economy to respond to all our duties. Okay? And as I said at the beginning of the presentation, we try to combine fiscal and social responsibilities. Okay? And if you see around the world, you can find different macro adjustments. Okay? It's something, we are not the first country that had to have a strong macro adjustment, but something that is, I would not say unique, but something that is worth to emphasize is that we were able in Chile to have this huge macro adjustment at the same time that we reduce poverty. Okay? This is what you can see at the end of the plot is the total poverty at the end of 2022, after almost 1 year of our government. And basically, we were able to reduce poverty and to have the lowest level of poverty in our history at the same time that we were reducing the government expenditure in more than 20%. Okay? Obviously, those, to have these two goals at the same time, to achieve these two goals at the same time, we had to work a lot in targeting some policies to to the basically to the poorest people and also middle class people, including the rising in minimum wage. Okay. So all these plots that I have shown you are the past. So an important question for you is how we're going to continue this process, and maybe the most important announcement. This is something that we have said many times, but it still is something that we have to say many times more. Okay, is that we're going to continue the path of fiscal responsibility. This path that is trying to reach a level of a structural deficit that is compatible to have a reduce in the debt, and also to have a path that is compatible to be able to respond to all these social needs also in the future. As you have seen maybe in the Chilean debate, there are some people who said that there is a tension between being fiscally responsible and socially responsible. Okay? And our answer to that political view is that this is not considering that this is let's say, a dynamic game. Okay? So if you spend all the money in the present, okay, you're not going to be able to respond to those social needs in the future. Okay? So we do think, this is a deep view, that the only way to be responsible socially responsible in a long-term perspective is being fiscally responsible in the present. Okay? So for that reason, we have the commitment to have minus 1.1 percentage point of the GDP of a structural deficit for the next year. This is something that you're going to be able to see when we send the new budget law to the Congress. We're going to see a lot each other with Senator Lagos and Senator Macaya in the next month, okay? Because we're going to be discussing this new budget law. Okay? And also, I would like to share the way that we try to combine this social and fiscal responsibility. Being fiscal responsible is not the same that having a small state. Being fiscal responsible means that you spend what you have from a long-term perspective, basically. Okay? And the way that we are trying to achieve these two objectives, one is increasing the fiscal revenues from a long-term perspective, and that's why we passed this new royalty law. Okay? And also we passed the tax compliance law. In both cases, with agreement with the opposition. We are a minority both in the House and in the Senate. So all the changes, all the laws that we try to pass need to reach an agreement with the opposition. And I have said in many different situations, we do appreciate the approach that, in particular, Chile Vamos, the main opposition in Chile, have addressed the conversation with us, because we have been able, okay, to reach this important agreement in the pension system, in the case of royalty, in the case of minimum wage too, in different policies that have been important. We were able to reach an agreement, and obviously this is something that we tried as a government. But when you try, you need that the partner is also open to get that achievement. So we do appreciate the approach of Chile Vamos in particular. Okay? And also I would say that another important component of our approach was to reallocate money, okay, from some aspects that were not a very important priority to the main priorities of the government. I mean, if you see the social expenditure in particular, you're gonna see that the health expenditure in Chile has increased by more than 1 billion per year. Okay? And the only way to do so, at the same time that you're fiscally responsible, is to take money from other places. Okay? And if you put this exercise from a broad perspective, trying to see the big numbers here, you're going to see that we have been reallocating more than 5 billions during our government. Okay? So when people say that it is possible to spend the money in a different way in the state, this is something that is true. Okay? But it requires a lot of work, in particular from our budget office. Okay? Okay, so just to summarize our fiscal path and what we have learned during this process, I would like to emphasize this overview, this about being sustainable from an intertemporal budget perspective. Okay? I would like to emphasize too the institutional improvements that we have made during the government, in particular to have this dual fiscal goal, not just structural deficit, but also the debt to GDP ratio. Okay? I would like to also emphasize that this is not just our view, but also when you see what is the view of the market about our economy, the market is recognizing all this progress. Okay? Something bad, because we also have to recognize the things that we haven't made we haven't done well. Okay, is the deficit that we had during 2024. Okay, as you may know, our target that year was 1.9, and the result was 3.3. Okay, but regarding that, I would like to emphasize two things. One, this was not because we had a higher government expenditure. Actually, it was the opposite. We reduced the government expenditure. The problem was how to estimate the fiscal revenues, and the estimation of fiscal revenue, as you can, if you remember one of the first plot that I showed you, it was so difficult because it was the variance that we have the first 2 years of the government was huge. Okay? So it was given the particular dynamic that we have at the beginning of the government, it was difficult to anticipate the fiscal revenues that we were going to have. Okay? And the second point that I want to make is that once we had this bad outcome during 2024, we act, okay? And we work together with the Congress to identify different measures that were important to reduce the fiscal expenditure. So it was transparent, it was something that we recognized that we didn't have the outcome that we were expecting, and we act in facing that situation. Okay, so now I'm going to pass to the economic outlook of our economy. So the first thing that I would like to show you is the activity, the economic activity. Okay? So basically, what you can see in this plot is that if you see the total economy, okay, we are basically in the same path that we would had if COVID didn't happen, basically. Okay? And this is something that you can see in the red line. Okay? But if you see the non-mining sector, which is basically 90% of the economy, we are above that. Okay? So our economy is not perfect. Growing about 2.5% is not enough, in our opinion, but the performance of the economy is better than the last 10 years, specifically if you focus on the non-mining sector. Okay? If you see what is the expectation for this year, I would say that the market is agreeing with us that the economy is going to grow about 2.5%. Something that I would like to emphasize is that in general, the Ministry of Finance has been more optimistic during the government than the market, and in general, we have been right. I mean, the economy, again, I mean, growing 2.5% is not enough. Previous year we grew 2.6%, but at some point the market was expecting growing 1.5%. Okay? And this is important because this is something that you know much better than me. In economics, expectations are really important. Okay? So if the market is expecting lowest perform, that has an effect. Okay? So I think it's relevant to try to understand why for 3 or 4 years the expectation of the market has been lower than the reality at the end. But the good news about this year is that the expectation between the market and the government is now we are agree on this basically in the middle of the year. So we are happy about that. Okay? And something that I would like to emphasize too is that if you see, for example, what are the forecasts for the activity now in the world in general, if you compare this like 6 months ago, before all this news about tariffs, in many cases the growth perspective is being reduced for many other countries, and in the case of Chile, in Chile it's not the case. So our economy is being resilient to the global situation, okay? And this is also something to be happy. Okay? What about investments? Maybe this is in my view one of the most important data and message from the last IPOM was good news about about investment. Okay, here you can see that the forecast for investment growth of this year is 5.5%. Okay, this is good news, and you can also see that the increase that we're going to have for 26 and 27 is about 3%. Okay, and this is something that we haven't seen previous years. Okay, what we saw like 2 years ago, I would say after royalty approved, okay, it was that the pipeline of mining projects, okay, increased by a lot. That it was also the case for the energy sector. So basically, like 2 years ago, we already anticipated what was going to happen this year. But in economy, it's different to anticipate that in 2 years you're going to have better data than having better data. So I think it's a good news what we're seeing in the case of investment. Okay? Something that is very recent, okay, and also very important because it was I would say a policy innovation, is what we have been doing in the case of residential construction. This is I would say the sector in Chile with a more difficult situation, okay, with a huge impact on unemployment at the same time. And I would say for 2 reasons. One, the interest rate was too high, and also there is an important gap between the increase in wages last 10 years, or 15 years, and the increase in the price of the houses. Okay? So for those structural reasons, we are having problems in Chile to sell the houses that are already built. Okay? So in order to address that situation, we work together with the private sector to design a policy, and in particular, this policy is subsidizing the interest rate. Okay? And also is including a new warranty, okay? And the combination between these two things is decreasing the interest rate, but a lot. Here, maybe it's not that clear, but in that these 2 small red points is the interest rate that we're having right now. Okay? And this program has been very successful. I mean, in less than 2 months, we already have like 9,000 new loans that are already in place, and we already have about 15,000 operations that are going to be in place in few weeks. Okay? As I said during my presentation in Madrid, we hope as a Ministry of Finance to be able to announce in few weeks that we're gonna put more money, more capital on this policy because it's working very well. And this is the kind of policy that you want to have, no? Because first, it's going to reduce the deficit that we have in the house sector. Second, it's gonna give more dynamic to this sector. And third, because of that, we're going to have more employment. Okay, so I think it's a very successful policy. Okay. Regarding employment, which is in our opinion the weakest part of the economy right now, because even though we are growing more, okay, we're having more investment, the performance in terms of employment is not the one that we like it. Okay? Having an employment rate of about 8.7% is too high in our opinion. So when I started this new position, the main message of President Boric was you have to keep fiscal responsibility, which is main target, at the same time that you put more effort on employment. Okay? Being said that, if you see the dynamic in the employment rate, basically what you can see is by 2014, 2013, it started a dynamic of an increasing in the unemployment rate, which is the left side of this plot. So this means that there is a structural change that is happening in our economy. It's not just what is happening this year, which is something to be more worried about. Okay, but we need to think deeply in what is going on. In terms of employment to population ratio, basically what you can see is that in the case of women, we are in a little better situation compared to COVID. In the case of men, we are in a little worse situation. And the combination of these two things is that the employment to population ratio is a little below the situation that we had before COVID. Something to emphasize here, and this is obviously our opinion, is that it is difficult to explain this dynamic just thinking on wage dynamic. And in order to try to convince you about that, the idea of this plot is that instead of thinking in changes, mathematically speaking, instead of thinking in the derivative, okay, we think it's better to see the plot in levels. Okay? So basically in this plot, what you can see is the GDP in level and the dynamic of real wages also in level. So basically what you can see is that wages decrease as the activity during COVID, but then the activity, the recovery in the activity was stronger than the recovery in wages. Okay? And it is true that during our government we have increased wages, real wages, okay, after 2022, okay, given the way that as a country we were able to control inflation at the same time that we were able to increase wages, real wages increase in Chile, but we are still behind the situation of the activity. So that's why we think that it's difficult to explain the dynamics that we are seeing in the case of employment, and putting all the attention on wages. Okay. Okay. So finally, I would like to emphasize what we are doing in terms of increasing the structural capacity of our economy to growth. Okay. As I said before, and I want to be pretty clear here, when we say that when for example, during 2024, we were, let's say, happy that we grew 2.6%, it was not because we think that 2.5% is a good number. Okay? It's because 1 year before that, the expectation was going to grow 1 or 1.5. Okay? But as a country, we need, and I think we have this agreement at this point, that growing 2.5% is not enough. I mean, it's not enough to address all the social needs that we have. If we continue with this growing, this tension between being fiscal and social responsible is gonna be more and more difficult in the future. Okay, so that's why it is very important that at the same time that we address all these macro imbalances at the beginning of the government, we also have a clear plan about how to grow more and to anticipate what is our view about the outcome that we have regarding this goal during our government. I would say that we have done many things. I'm going to show you that, but we do think that we need to do more. Okay? And that's why I think it's very important that in the political campaign, the growth policies is playing an important role in that discussion. Okay? So I'm going to give you different examples or different policies that, in our opinion, are going to have a relevant impact on our growth capacity in Chile. First of all, the pension reform. Okay? It is true that the main goal of the pension reform is improving the quality of people's life. I mean, increasing the pension that they have in the future or in the present. And as I said before, we do think that this is an important political achievement, not a political achievement of our government, but a political achievement of the political system in Chile. Okay? But another impact of this pension reform is the impact on pension saving in general and on national saving from a macro perspective. Okay? And we do think that given the increase in the national saving that you're going to have because of this reform, this is going to have an impact on growth. Okay? There are two reasons why we think so. One, because this is going to deepen the local capital market. Okay? And second, because there is a lot of evidence that higher aggregate saving rates increases the growth capacity of a country. I mean, it is true that we are an open economy, so you can get capital from abroad. This is still the case. But even though we're an open economy, there are different channels that can explain why increasing national saving is going to have an impact on investment. Okay? So this is the first reason why we think we're going to grow more in the future. The second reason is what we have done in the case of the permitting process in Chile. I mean, as a Ministry of Economy, I had many meetings with investors. Okay? In general, the investors all around the world have a pretty good perspective about Chile. There are structural reasons for this. For example, what is happening in the energy sector, in the mining sector, in the digital sector. I mean, all of them are dynamics sectors where we have a lot of attention. And if you see foreign investment in Chile is working pretty well, actually. Okay? But if I had one important message in all these meetings, it was that permitting process it was taking too long in Chile, and there was a lot of uncertainty. So it was not just it's taking too long, but it was also I mean, I cannot, as an investor, I cannot anticipate how long it's going to take. Okay? And when we are trying to finance your project, this uncertainty is a very important one. I mean, if you see the rate of approval in Chile is high. This is not the problem. The problem is it's too long, and you don't know how long it's going to take. Okay? So in order to address all these challenges, we sent to the Parliament an ambitious law. Okay? This law, I mean, we did two things. One, we sent a law that is going to change the situation in the environmental assessment part, and the other one in the sectoral permit part. Okay? The sectoral permit part was already approved. Okay? Regarding that change, we're going to be able to reduce the time between 30 and 70%. Okay? And this sectoral permit part is very important. Okay? I would say that it's important for two reasons. One is because for most of the people who want to have who want to invest in Chile, the sectoral permit part is I mean, it includes all the permits that they have to face, because most of the investment projects are small ones. Okay? And in all those cases, okay, you don't need to pass through the environmental assessment part. And that, even though these are small investments, those small investments are very important from the point of view of the employment creation, from the point of view of job creation. Okay? And if you think now in big projects, okay, there is, for example, this data that is coming from the Comisión Nacional de Evaluación y Productividad, okay? And what they show is that in the case of a mining project, okay, a big one, okay, the environmental assessment part takes about 1/3 of the time, and the sectoral permit part takes about 2/3. So even in the case of big projects, the sectoral part is very important. Okay? And it's the part that is working worst, in my opinion, because in the case of the environmental part, even though there are many issues, that's why we sent a law to the parliament. In the case of the sectoral part, okay, nobody thought that part as a system in the past. Okay? So in my opinion, it's a mess. Okay, and this is something that we're gonna change in many. Following many different approach. This law is changing 46 laws. Okay? So it's a massive change in our system in order to get this outcome. Here, there are just two examples of this law. One is this parallel instead of a sequential processing. Today, okay, there are many cases that you have to follow a sequential path. So in order to get a permit or to start the process of getting that permit, you have to finish the previous one. And that is something that it doesn't make sense, because all these permits can be evaluated by its own, basically. You don't need the previous information. So there is no reason, there is no deep reason to have this sequential approach. Okay? And just think to be very concrete. Imagine that you have to face two permits, okay? And each of them takes 6 months. If you have that in a sequential approach, you're going to have 1 year. If you have that in a parallel approach, you're going to have 6 months. So this is a huge change. Okay? This is actually, my background is an econometrician, okay? And in particular, I used to program all my codes. And if you learn something when you have to program your code, is that whenever you're able to do something in a parallel well versus a sequential approach, this is the best thing that you can do. Okay? So this is a very simple change, but it's going to be a huge change for big projects. Okay? There are some projects that they need hundreds of sectoral permits. Okay? So this is going to be a big change. And another important one is regulatory stability at entry. In simple, this is going to imply that the standard of the regulation that you have at the beginning of your process is going to be stable during the whole process. Okay? And this is not just, in my opinion, this is going to be more important, not in terms of the time that is going to last the evaluation process, but it's going to be more important in terms of the uncertainty. Okay? And for big projects, that is going to be a difference in the future. There are other things that we are also doing. Some of them do not require a change in the law. Okay? So, for example, we are changing the regulation environmental evaluation. For example, we are changing the threshold for declaration versus an study, and also we are changing the regulation in the case of excavation. So just to give you an example, and this is something that you have addressed, when you have a finding, okay, of an archaeological thing. Okay, I don't know how to say that, but I imagine that I'm being clear. If you find that in a specific zone of your project, okay, sometimes you have to stop the whole process, and it doesn't make sense. I mean, you just need to stop that specific. I mean, the work in that specific area. Okay, and this is something that we are changing. We're changing here. Okay, so all these things that, I mean, to change that, you don't need a new law. This is something that you can change as an executive order. Okay, and this is something that we are already doing. Okay? The third component, the third component of, or the third reason why we think we're going to increase more in the future is that we have a national public infrastructure plan. I think this is not updated, but Ministry Lopez, the Ministry of Public Works in Chile, she presented like 1 week ago a plan for the next 30 years. And it's a very ambitious plan for investment in Chile. And another important thing is that there are a lot of opportunities for business there. Because as you know, in Chile, the public-private approach of public works has been very successful. And when you are able as a state to give to the market this long-term perspective, is better in order to allow the market to prepare them to take advantage from all these opportunities. Another part that I would like to emphasize is what we have achieved in the case of data center national plan. And this is an example that I really like it because it shows the strength of economic institution in Chile. Invest Chile, the other one, the one that promotes the foreign investment in Chile, was created during the second administration of President Bachelet, okay? So about 10 years ago or so. Okay? And basically, they have been promoted data center investment in Chile since then. Okay? And they have been very, very successful, and the political authorities, we just need to work together with them. But the agenda is being pushed, is being developed by them, and it has been, as I said, very successful. And it's based, obviously, on our structural advantages that we have in Chile. I mean, energy, green energy at low prices, a very strong digital infrastructure, and so on. And finally, regarding this slide, I would like to emphasize that if you see the pipeline of mining projects in Chile, we have 83 billion of dollars for the next decade. Another aspect that I would like to emphasize is how we are deepening the relationship between the private and the public sector, and how we have been creating new approaches to develop this. And in my opinion, what we have done in the case of lithium is the best example of this. The national lithium strategy in Chile is being able to achieve different goals. So first, we're going to double the production in about 1 decade. Okay? Second, we're going to be able to change the technology of extraction such that we can double the production, but at the same time that we reduce the impact on the environment. Okay? And finally, we are being able to put more money on research. Okay? Not just for changing technologies, but also to being able to protect the salt flats that are not going to be there for production. Okay? And we have specific achievements about this. These pictures are very important given that we are in UK. Okay? These are 2 pictures with Rio Tinto. Okay? Rio Tinto just had an agreement with both Enami and Codelco. We're going to have thousands of millions of dollars being invested in Chile. And this is being added to the most important agreement that we have in the case of lithium, the agreement between Codelco and SQM. that agreement, this last one, is going to be very important in order to increase the production, and in my opinion, is the most important public and private agreement in decades in Chile. Obviously, there is a lot of challenges. We were talking a few minutes ago about how difficult, for example, has been the indigenous consultancy in that case. But we're very proud that we had a successful end of that process, because it means that we can have this huge project with a lot of investment at the same time that we have that the people who live around this place are happy and they feel part of the development process. Finally, I would say that, and this is something that was emphasized by our ambassador here in UK, Chile's dynamic and resilient in the export sector has been very important during this year in particular, even though there is a lot of uncertainty, trade war, tariff war is obviously an issue not just for Chile but for anyone. Okay? But even in that situation, the export sector is growing in Chile, okay? And it has been, it's a driver of our economy this year, and it was also a driver of our economy previous year. Okay? And the way that we are approaching this situation is first, even though we are a small medium country, we try to defend this principle that are very important about trade openness, about the respecting the rule of law, democracy, trying to be predictable, and in all cases, in the relationship that we have with all countries, we have done the same. And as I said before, UK is a great partner on that regard. Again, the previous slides shows what is the view of our government. Obviously, this is a view that is based on data, but it still is our view. It is also relevant to see how other people see this situation, and what you can see in this in the outcome there was some information that it was released a few weeks ago. The outcome that we have from the budget committee, which is an independent group of economists, is that they expect that the growth capacity of our economy is going to be higher the next 2 years. So they are already recognizing that maybe our structural capacity is not 2%, but it's maybe more capacity of growth, and this we think is good news. So just 2 slides to finish. If you see now what is the view of the market regarding the future of our economy, there are different ways to answer that question, but for sure one important one is how does it look the stock market. And what you can see in that data is that since 2022 we have had an important increase in the stock market. You understand better than me what does it mean, that important data. Okay? And finally, to give you my few final points, I would say that at the beginning of our government, we faced 2 challenges: macro imbalances and low growth capacity of our economy. I would say that the macro imbalances was addressed in a very good way. This is my view, and we were able to have this macro adjustment, reducing poverty. Okay? In terms of growth capacity, as I show you, we have done and we have implemented few changes that are going to be relevant. For example, permitting. For example, the pension reform, but I do think that we are still in the middle of this trip. Okay? We need to do more in terms of increasing our growth capacity. We do think that, this is a more political statement, we do think that social democratic governments have comparative advantages for potential growth, given the way that we are able to put together all these different goals. And what we hope, or what we view at this point about the future, is that we are going to be able to have more stable and efficient investment cycle. There are many things that are helping on that process. The price of copper, for example, is relevant, but also the way that we address the macro challenges in Chile. Okay? So just to finish, I think again that the challenges that we face regarding macroeconomics have been addressed in a good way. I'm not saying that all the work is done. This is, I mean, it's impossible. There are many challenges. The role that is playing the central bank in still controlling the inflation is a very important one. This is something that is going to continue. There are many things to change. There are many laws to discuss. We are still discussing important laws. Just to give you one example, this nursery policy in Chile is a very important law that we need to pass. President Boric said that this is the most important law for us until the end of the government. This is going to be important for both for the economy, for women, for children, and I hope also for men, to the extent that we become more responsible about paternity. But so there are many things to do, but we do think that our economy is in a good path, and we have to continue in working together to keep that path in the future. Thank you.